and welcome to Hope Through Conversations, where we have open, respectful dialogue on a multitude of topics in an effort to educate, empathize, and create positive change. I'm your host, Rose Colarossi. In this edition of Hope Through Conversations, I sit down and have conversations with my Black girlfriends, Black men, and Black associates in order to give some insight into their world and their perspective. I have been so sad, so angry, and I have never felt so ignorant these past few weeks as to what my Black friends and family have been experiencing their whole lives. It is my intention that these conversations will allow us all to gain greater insight into other cultures and other people's perspectives and highlight the fact that we have many, many more similarities than we do differences.
All right, everyone, I want to welcome my friend Stephanie Snowden, or as she's known as a stylist, Stephanie Michelle. She's got 4 beautiful children. She's a wife, a daughter, of course, a mother, and she's just an amazing person. We met several years ago, Rosie. And our energy just clicked, and we found out we had the same birthday.
And born in the same place.
Absolutely. And then her and her youngest son, Rylan, and I have this love affair going on because he is Mr. Personality. He is. That I love. This is what I love social media for, is that I get to see what you post about. He cracks me up. That kid cracks me up.
Us too.
I know he cracks you up.
On a regular basis.
All right, so let's jump in, right? So a lot of this is going to be redundant because I know this about you. We've discussed this. But tell everybody where you grew up and then where you live now.
All right, everyone. Hi, Stephanie Michelle, Coach of Style. And Rosie, first let me say thank you. It is an absolute honor and a privilege to be on here with you because the time is now. We've always talked, but the time really is now. So I was born in New York, and we left New York when I was about 5. We moved to Los Angeles, and quickly we came home from church one day, and there was no front door. Someone took the front door, and everything in the house. So my mom said, we're moving. And oddly enough, we moved to Compton, California. So. Wow. My mom is from Jamaica, so any pretenses she didn't have at that time. Mm-hmm. I had a grandmother who lived in Compton, so we moved there in the early 80s. And I had a childhood I would never, ever, ever, I would never change it. I would never change it. I'm very grateful for it. As I got older, I moved from that city as a teen, and if you name a city in California, I probably have lived through it. So
really?
Through Gardena, I went through Hawthorne, I went through Inglewood, California. And then when I got married, I settled into Culver City. One of my favorite cities in California. Is such a diverse place to live, walkability for everything. I absolutely love it. And my husband at the time worked for the police department. So it worked out well for us. And then we bought our first house in Sherman Oaks, California. And that was a bubble. That was an absolute bubble, but I loved my bubble. But I guess I had to peek my head out. My husband said, well, once you peek your head out, we're moving to Texas. So here we are. I've been here almost 12 years, and I wouldn't change it. It's been great. It's been great. Great for my career, great for us as a couple, great for us as parents. We had our love child here. So Rosie mentioned I have 4 kids. And when you hear the age ranges, they're 20, soon to be 18, 16, and 5. So.
Yeah. Okay, so Jamaica mom, she doesn't know anything else. Okay, so, when you were younger, were you in a neighborhood that was predominantly Black, predominantly white? Was it mixed, Hispanic? Like, what was it?
All right. So the neighborhood that I grew up in, it was predominantly Black, and it was predominantly Black, but you had a lot of Latino families there too. Like my neighbor behind me, there were a Latino family, traditional setup, mom, dad, kids, abuela, grandma,
Yeah, grandmas.
dad,
Yep.
everybody was there. And everybody, surprisingly, most of the houses where I lived were homeowners. So you didn't have a lot of people that were renting in that area. But as time went on, you could see your environment change.
Mm-hmm.
You really could see how crime changed. What really came into not just my area, but just throughout was drugs. That's what really started to come in and ravage. I'm talking about 83, 84. And it was like, you literally saw people that had careers, went to work every day in their suits and different things. And then all of a sudden they were like zombies. I'm grateful that didn't happen in my household. So I kind of lived in two different worlds, and here's why. My mom was from Jamaica, and she really, inside our house was really like it was Jamaica. The food, the music, mannerisms, things like that. So in my house was Jamaica. When I wanted no more of Jamaica, I would go down the street to my grandmother's house, to where my grandmother, my aunts, my cousins that I went to school with, that's where they lived. So it was like America and Jamaica. That's what I knew.
That's great.
I loved it. But I was teased profusely by my own peers because my mom's accent was so heavy. She always wore dressy clothes, even like to water the grass.
Love it.
It's just like I was teased for that. So I got teased for the most insane
We get
stuff.
teased for everything, don't we? Just,
But where I really started to notice differences was in my church. I went to a really international church, and we had a pastor that passed away, and then we got a white pastor, which he and his family changed my entire life. He came in my life when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And you would have thought that it would have been some form of culture shock, but it really wasn't. It was like that man was born and raised to be right there in that church.
Oh, wow.
And he didn't change the way he spoke or where he lived. He didn't do anything different. He just took time to just really, he really sat with you and prayed with you and talked with you. And for me as a little girl growing up in a place where it was predominantly Black, to have this white family really show you love and really have no pretenses, that opened up a new world for me. So I started to see people different because of that pastor and his wife and his family.
And you were around 8 years old?
I was around 9, almost 9 years old, and I didn't know any different. My godmother was white.
So that's what I was going to ask you. So, did your mom have friends that were both Black and white or Hispanic?
My mom, her work friends, so I'll separate my mom and dad because my parents did divorce, although they were extremely civil, but they divorced. My mom worked in a bank downtown LA. So her counterparts, she was the only Black woman that worked where she worked.
I remember you telling me that.
Most of the people around her were white and Filipino. My mom never had conversations with me about you're different or we can't do this because of your skin. So it's very odd for me because I didn't have those kind of conversations. You knew you looked different when you were around other people, but it never became one of those things where I felt less than or anything, and I still don't to this day, although I do notice when people notice a difference, and I'm like, that's on you. But
it is on them.
I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful for that because it's allowed me to be like a chameleon and have people in my life.
Because of the way you were raised with your mom. I mean, it was what it was. People were who they were.
And it was never in my city. I mean, there was nobody to bounce any ideas off of because everybody was Black. So there was nothing. I mean, what else can you say?
Right.
It's when, now here's where things changed for me again, is when I went to middle school. We left the city of Compton. We moved to a city called Gardena. Where I lived, now it's a mix. My neighbor's white. This neighbor's from India. I mean, we had a mix of neighbors.
Okay.
And it was like, whoa, it was different. It was different. The way we functioned.
It is. Listen, it's different.
It was different.
Whatever age you are. I mean, we moved out of New York City. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
And then we're an hour north in the burbs. And it's all white. There's nothing else. It's all white people. Like my sister and brother and I were like, where are we? Like where, like it was a culture shock to us because the city was a melting pot, right? So I can only imagine that you went from predominantly Black and then now it's just it's a complete melting pot.
It was like shock, but the true shock was now I'm going to middle school for the very first time. Not only I interacted with my pastor on Sunday. Okay, so my mom had us in church a lot. So Sunday, Wednesday night, Friday night, clean up on Saturday. But interacting with kids now that are my peers. Not only that, now I have white teachers. I think I have one Black teacher. Everybody else was white. The principal was white. Most of my friends were white. And then the Black kids that I knew, you could tell that they hadn't been around a lot of other Black kids.
Oh, wow.
So it was
really
a lot
interesting. Going on.
It was a lot. It took me a lot to adjust. And when I say a lot to adjust, I would come home and I would have all these questions from my mom. And she said, I know what we're going to do. We're going to go and meet with the principal. And I thought I was in trouble when she said that, but she collected my dad and my mom went down there and she said she has a lot of questions and we can answer them. I appreciated my mom so much because it broke down some walls because they could tell that I'm coming to school I talk a lot, but I was silent for a while because it was a shock for me. I was like, okay, so some people are teasing me because I talk different. Some people are teasing me because I kind of dress different. I was always a weirdo, but I kind of dressed different.
I don't think you're weird. You were just different from that. Not a weirdo.
Yeah, I'm still different, but I didn't embrace it then. But I really appreciate where she had the conversation with my principal because my principal was like, oh, I didn't know she felt.
That was smart of your mom.
Yeah, my mom doesn't like conflict and my mom is a talker. So she was like, if there's an issue, take the issue to the source and quit having conversations with a whole bunch of people.
I love that.
So that's pretty much how I lived my life.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah. So from then on, I've never had a shock of meeting someone different or meeting someone new. Actually, I seek it out.
But that's your personality too. That's your personality.
I love it.
We're the same. We talk to everyone and anyone, and
nobody's a stranger.
And like I always say, each person's a window to a new world. Like it's exciting, it's whatever. But let me ask you this: when was the first time, or did it ever happen where someone did treat you poorly because of the color of your skin? Did anybody ever say anything derogatory? Yes. Or when did that happen?
Seventh grade. I went to, there was a store that most of the kids went to, and it changed management. So the people that owned it, I think they were Korean. So don't quote me, but I think they were Korean. Okay. And they were super nice. It was a donut shop in the front and then all the junk that you ever wanted in the back.
That is that's a kid's fantasy. Yeah.
But we didn't tell our parents that. We were like, we're just going to get a donut. But then when you go behind the red velvet curtain, and it literally like a red velvet curtain, and it was like nachos and ice cream. It was like a whole world back there.
Wow.
But they didn't want, it's a tiny little store, so they didn't want a lot of people in there. So they had to figure out how to do it. But anyway, a new owner came in, and Mr. Phelps. I will never forget Mr. Phelps because he was just a mean man. So the store was so tiny that you couldn't let more than maybe 10 people at a time.
Oh, wow. Pretty small.
So, I mean, it's like tiny little storefront. So he would make us wait in a line. And he, instead of whoever's next could go in,
Yeah.
he would pick who could go in.
Oh.
And you could be in that line and he would pick.
I don't like that.
And he used to and I used to say, Mr. Phelps, I have money. And in my head, my crazy head, I'm thinking, oh, he doesn't want my money. And then it dawned on me, my friend said, he doesn't like us, because she wouldn't go to the store anymore. She said, he doesn't like us. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, watch. She went up to him, and she's with a guy who's white, Henry. He had red hair and freckles, because I liked Henry. But anyway, she walked up there with him, and he said, he can come in, but I don't think I like your kind in there. That was the first time
Wow.
That was the first time I actually cried, where it was just like, he actually said that out loud. And I had a very belligerent mouth at that time, and I do apologize to Jesus, Moses, Adam, Samuel, and everybody else. I said some things to him that I shouldn't have said, that if my kids said it, they would be leaving planet Earth.
You are how old, though?
I was 13. And I said, why would you say that? We've been waiting out here all this time, and all we want is candy. And he said, I don't want your kind in here. And he said it again. I said, now that's the second time you said it. I said, I didn't know who to call, so I said, I'm going to call the police. I really didn't. I was late to class, so I went on to class. But that bothered me so much that I called my dad, and he just simply told me, don't go back to that store, which I wasn't going to, but I had to tell somebody. My dad was like my confidant. From what I understand, my dad paid that man a visit. Yeah, but that was the first time that would always stick with me. It will always, always, always stick with me. And I never forget, Henry said, do you want me to get you something? And I was like, never. I will never eat candy. Okay, I won't eat candy from him. But no, I don't want anything for him. So eventually that store ended up closing, because little by little, people just stopped going.
Well,
for whatever reason, they just
for whatever reason, who wants to go to a man who picks and chooses who he wants and then says such hateful, hurtful things?
Yeah, that was the first time that I can remember. And I'm pretty sure other little things have happened along the way, but not significant enough for me to be like, yeah, I'm gonna let that bother me. But that got to me. And then I know when I was 18 years old, there was a guy that I worked with that I'm not going to say his name because he's still on the planet, but he's such a sweetheart. But we went out on a couple of dates, and he's white. I didn't care. My mom could care less. My mom was like, as long as they serve the Lord. Outside of that, I'm not really interested in what they look like.
They're a good person. That's it.
So that's all she cared about. And we went on a couple of dates, but I'll never forget, we went to movie theater in Culver City. And we were sitting in the movie theater, and a bunch of black guys came in. It's just a mix of people. But the reason why I'm focusing on the black guys is because now here we have the reverse racism. So instead of them attacking him, they let me in on it. They were like, you're so cute. Why do you want to be with them? Why do you want to be with him? You can come with us. I'm like, you haven't had a conversation with me. You don't know what's going on. They assumed that fella had a whole lot of money. I mean, all these things
notions. Yeah.
And I was looking at Chris like, we just want to watch a movie, but I don't think it's going to happen. And we were too afraid to get up because it was too many of them. And then the white guys came in, and it was really weird because one of the white guys looked at, I just said his name, I'm sorry. looked at him and said, "She's good, huh?" And I was like, "What does that mean?" And it's just like, it's just certain things people say, and it comes from stereotypes.
Yeah.
It really all comes from stereotypes. And a lot of this stuff is learned, because I have a 5-year-old son. I have a 5-year-old son, and my neighbors are white on either side. I am the only Black household on my block. Probably in my communities, maybe 100 houses, and it's maybe 3 families. That wasn't going to stop me from moving here. This is the lot I wanted. This is where I wanted to move. This is where I love my neighbors on either side, and they have kids. When Rylan sees their car pull up, Rylan doesn't say, "Oh, there's the white people next door." You know what he says? He's like, "Oh, they're home. I'm going to play."
Aw, that's the way it should be. And that's the way it is. It's learned behavior. We've been talking about this for 2 weeks now. It's learned behavior. You see all these studies, all these videos of kids, and they know no difference. It is learned.
But it's not just learned. It's a lot of things that come in as you get older. You start to have these preconceived notions of what you think certain groups are like.
Mm-hmm. Because what did you hear about, right? So it's learned. Yeah. Like, what did you hear, not in your family, but a lot of families, and a lot of people that I'm talking to right now, right, and having these hope through conversations is, hey, in my family, I was taught, don't trust this group. Or in this, not my immediate family, but when my extended family would come together. Or so we learn these things. Or, hey, my great-great-great-grandfather was brought over here in a cage as a slave. So, of course, that's how we're thinking. But she happens to be biracial, so she's got her mom who's white in her family. Right. And she was very blessed. She said there was never any racism on either side. We all loved each other. There was just one. Yeah, she said, my grandmother, just one. And my mother said, once you were born, game over. All of a sudden, anything that she felt, she just saw pure love between all of us, and it was over. But it's all this
Yeah, it is. It's all in your head. I won't say my family didn't have, my family did have conversations. But what my family didn't do to us, and I'm grateful because I've had these conversations with my cousin, they never made you feel like a victim of something. Mm-hmm. Yes, history happened. Yes, you're taught that history. Yes, you want to remember that history, but you don't engulf yourself so much that you can't move forward from there. You appreciate, you have empathy for what happened back there, and you appreciate what happened back there. And now I've taken the torch and I'm just moving it a little further than where, say, my mom. It's like a white Jewish family came to Jamaica through a church. My mom got saved and she told them that she wanted to go to school. They sent her to New York. She goes to school and meets my father. My father said, "I'm marrying you." Now, I wish he would have let her finish school because they ended up moving. He married her and moved to California.
Happens in all families.
The whole thing is, what if my mom was raised in a place in Jamaica where it's like, no, don't trust those people.
Right.
They're going to do you wrong. Didn't do her wrong.
That's why I keep asking the questions from people, where did you grow up? Where did you live? Because it does. That really makes a big difference. So I'm going to ask you this question. I already know the answer to this because we talked about this, and this is, to me, I can just imagine this. You know where I'm going in my mind's eye. So when we travel, right? So I tell my kids all the time, I tell everyone, when you travel, you learn so much on so many different levels. And there are people around the world, but even in our own country, that are in rural areas or dependent upon where they're growing up, right? They're living in little bubbles, and some have been taught and some have no idea, right? Of anything. And then they meet you and it's like, okay, so I want you to, I know the story about Italy, but I know you and your family travel all over the place, but oh my goodness, it tickled me. What you talked about when you were in a restaurant with your family in Italy.
Oh my gosh, and the lady with the picture.
Yes.
Yeah, our family loves to travel. One, because we just need to get out. But traveling the world has been the best thing, not just for my husband and I, but for our kids, so they understand that you're just like a blip on the map compared to the rest of the world. As far as Black people, we're only 12%. So if you think everywhere you're gonna go, you're doing yourself a disservice. So you better get your passport and get your plane ticket and get to seeing folks and live your life. So,
but let's pause there for a minute, Stephanie. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but let's pause there for a second, because I've been pausing a lot during these conversations. So I'm pausing here for a minute because let's just think about this. Now, if we look at the United States, 13%, I think it's 13.8 or 13% is Black.
Right.
Then, believe it or not, it's a higher percentage now is Hispanic. I want to say it's about 16. And then, you know, there's some Asian, there's some other, but predominantly we are white. So when white America, if you don't have Black friends or Black neighbors, or you are not in that scope, when you start hearing stories, you kind of go, oh, well, you're a good person. You go, oh my gosh, that's awful. That's terrible. I'm sorry that happens. And my pastor and another pastor were talking, and it was the pastor was from one community, and then my pastor from Hope, and they're friends.
Okay.
And the pastor from one community, that's a predominantly Black church, which I had no idea. I've been there several times. I'm so silly, Stephanie. I had no idea. I was
have a lot of friends that go there.
I was there for Priscilla Shirer's events. I love her events, so we all go. So anyway, he said, the pastor from one community said, let's use this analogy, you know, and he said, I don't want to, and this is what we've also been talking about. We don't want to use blanket statements. Like when we say all, well, it's not all Blacks and it's not all whites.
Exactly.
Let's say some.
Yes.
Let's say some. So some Blacks people are looking through binoculars. Some white people are looking through bifocals. Now, if I was to be honest, I would say most white people that I know. And I loved his analogy. So you're looking up here and life is great because your life's great. You know, we all have our struggles. Doesn't matter what color, what culture, whatever. Every now and again, you'll hear about a struggle or a death or a whatever, and you look down here in and you go, oh my gosh, that's awful, that's terrible. And then you go back to looking up here because that's your life. That's what affects you. And this is where when I talk to my girlfriends that are Black, they're like, these things happen, people are aware of it, and then 2 weeks later, it's not
done.
In the news.
It's done.
It's not in the news. And we've been talking about how we're hopeful, right? We're all praying, we're hopeful that that's not the case this time. There's no denying this. We're hoping that there's traction, that people are going to still be having conversations. But the point is 13%. 13%. So when I say to my friends that are white, I say, I want you to think about walking into a church, walking into a school like you did, and looking around, like one of my girlfriends said, she looked around the school and she realized there's like 8 Black kids in the entire school. And she said, so that means at any given time, I'm really not going to be in a class with another Black child. So everybody is white. And so I always encourage my white friends to go think about how that must feel. Like you look around, and let's say as kids, we are looking around. Like we don't know different. Like my girlfriend Dawn said, Rose, when we're little, we know no difference. If you have a ball and I want to play with the ball, we're going to play with the ball. I don't know that you're white. I know that I'm Black. But as we get older and we have these experiences, people start showing us that, okay, yeah, there's differences. Some people in hatred ways, and other people just, there's no denying you're white, I'm Black. But when we really bring it down to the level of, just think about this as a little child, not having a lot of shows, not having a lot of people to look
Right.
up, not having a lot of role models in magazines, not having a lot of role models in movies, right? Dolls. I mean, books.
Dolls. Oh my gosh, I got story about dolls.
Books.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to pause there. I know I got off on
Yeah.
a little bit, but let's circle back. You and your family were traveling, and you were in Italy.
Yeah, we were in Italy and we were having an amazing time. I mean, the pictures that we took do nothing for the visions that we actually saw. We were at a restaurant and, we were at a cafe. And we were sitting there and these tiny tables, looking at the tiny cars. And my family decided they wanted to go and get gelato. I didn't want any, so I said, I want to sit here and finish my bread and oil. I was like, where else can you eat bread and oil and just not gain weight?
It's
I'm
so
sitting right
good.
here.
I know. Now,
Okay,
where were you? Were you in Rome? Where were you?
yes, we
Okay.
were in Rome.
Okay.
So they went on to do that, and I said, I'll meet you. It's like 2 doors down. So a bunch of people start coming into this cafe area. You're sitting outside, or you could sit inside. But then a bunch of people start like pointing, and I'm looking around like, it just looked odd. So I'm trying to figure out what they're pointing to. And then a lady walks up to me with the camera. She's not speaking English. And the English she did speak, it was really broken.
Uh-huh.
And I said, okay, I'm thinking she wants me to take a picture. I'm
them.
like, oh, so they're pointing at me. They want me to take a picture of them. So I'm like, boo-boo the fool, taking the camera, trying to take a picture. And she said, no, you. And so someone translate, and it was crazy. They said she's never seen a black person and
in Rome. I find this
Rome,
so hard to believe. In Rome.
I'm like, I'm in a high tourist. If the Pope came out right now, he should be like, oh, you're a tourist. Just like we are in a high tourist area right now. But she really just was just like fascinated. And it was like, okay, so she wanted to touch my hair. And I was like, okay, now you did a little creepy. I was like, no, don't do that. I'm not a sideshow. And it was just like, what the heck is going on?
When you told me this, I'm like, well, I mean, come on. You're a beautiful woman. You're tall. You could be. I thought maybe she thought you were a model or an actress or something.
I wish she thought I was a model. Then I would have got to posing, and at least I would have known, what to do. But it was just like, no, I'm Steffi from Frisco. But when the guy told me that she's never interacted with a black person, at that moment when he said that sentence, then I was like, wait, this is a teaching moment. I'm gonna do like my mom would have done. You don't act a nut, but I'm like, okay, so but don't do with the hair thing and trying to poke at me. Now stop that.
Yeah.
But then I said, okay, let's go ahead and take the picture. And so he's translating. I said, ask her what she wants to know. And she wanted to know how I got my hair so curly. Where do I live? So she literally, in her way, was trying to learn me. But she's actually now bold enough to do it. And that's where we are now, having these conversations. People need to be bold enough to not be mad when somebody wants to learn about you or wants to have conversations with you. It's what's happening is this approach. Rosie, I wanted to say this. This just came to my mind.
Sure.
Someone told me yesterday that we're glorifying this man that just died, and I said, you're too focused on the incident that happened. I said, there's an issue.
Yes.
So there's an incident that triggered the issue that has been there.
Yes.
We're looking at 18 countries, whether they're rioting, whether they're peaceful or just acting belligerent. The reason why it's happening is because it has gone on so long systemically that you can't take anymore. If you put your credentials, say we went to the same school, we did the exact same thing, we had the same birthday. So say we applied for a job and everything looked the same on paper. But then we walk into that interview. I guarantee you nothing in you would say, well, maybe they won't take me because of my skin color. Something in the back of my head would probably have that in there because of systemic racism.
And
now,
I've
that
learned
doesn't mean
that.
I'm not going
I've
to walk
learned
in
that.
there and give
Yeah.
it my, I'm going to still give it my best. And that's not going to make me, maybe I just don't live it inside. I just don't have a lot of hate in me. I get my moments, but
I don't think, and I want to believe, Stephanie, that most of us don't. I really, maybe
I want to
I'm pie
believe
in the
that
sky.
too, but I am
really-
seeing things now, like people that have come to my house, know my family, know what we're like, what we're about. What you see at my house, I'm the same way when you see me outside. If I'm getting on my son not to do something at home, I'm going to get on him about that outside.
Yeah,
my tone might be a little bit more
civilized.
I'm still gonna get on it.
I go under my breath. That's where I'm under my breath. I'm like, you need to.
Yeah, I still have expectations of myself, but here's where I know things are a little different. My son, my third one, my third child, he's learning to drive right now. And he is just like, the world is good. And I'm like, yeah, sweetie, inside this house, it's great. Outside that door, that world is not designed to love you, and it never will be until God calls us home, because we messed that up. Eve messed that up. So we have to now live our lives fighting through what Eve and her and Adam, what they got together and did. That's how we got here. So let's just face that.
Mm-hmm.
But he's now the age where he's like, oh, I want to, it's my 11th grade year. He's going to drive and do all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And for him to stop and say, Mom, Dad, and I are going out to drive. And I'm like, okay, bye. And he was like, are we going to be okay? And I said, what do you mean? He's never done that before.
Yeah.
He's never done that. But I have to instill in him, listen, man, there is a part of the world that's going to look at you less than, and you have to try. You got to give it your all just so you can halfway compete a lot of times. And this is a super bright kid, never given me any issues. He's not a perfect kid, but I don't have any issues with him. He's just super laid back and that kind of thing. But he could go outside and somebody not like just the way he looks today, and he may not be able to come home because of that. That bothers me. That really, truly, for my husband, that bothers me.
That bothers me.
It really bothers me.
That as a mother, right? As a mother, we worry so much about our kids anyway, right? We worry about, who they're with and drugs and alcohol. And, we hope we've instilled in them, right, our values. We've brought them up in church. It doesn't matter. Good kids do dumb things sometimes. But then to have to worry about your son to have to go out because of the color of his skin, that someone may decide that they just don't like him and they may harm him, they may do something. No mother should have to think about that or worry about that. And no son should have to say to his mom, are we going to be okay because of the color of his skin? I don't understand it. I will never understand it. I think there's a lot of people that will never understand it. But the reason we're having the conversation is there is a population of people that have grown up and that have these notions, and they have hate inside of them. It makes no sense. I don't know if it makes them feel superior, if it makes them feel better than, because, my mother always taught me, hurt people, right?
Exactly.
Like, what happened when someone, I'll never forget, I had a kid, I was in 6th grade, it was a boy, and he punched me in the stomach. Now, I was a tomboy, and I wielded back, even though we were always told, don't fight, and I, right in the face. And he went down and cried, and that made it worse because he was embarrassed in front of, but I was just in shock that I was taught a boy does not put a hand on a girl. Like, I was just in such shock, and it was like a reflex. Like, I'm standing there with Deborah, and I just went boom, And I remember my mom saying, hurt people, what he did, he shouldn't have. I don't condone fighting. I'm glad you stood up for yourself.
Yeah, I'm glad you.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you stood. But she also said, we have to think about what has happened to him. Who has done that to him? And when I see this such blatant hatred, it's learned. Or what was done to them? Or what were they just brainwashed as a child up into an adult? And I just, what I don't understand is, okay, so you grew up there and that you were in that environment. Have you just stayed there and you're just not open-minded? We've all learned things in our family, but then we've gone on and we've traveled and we've made up our own mind on certain things. But predominantly, we've got our foundation. I don't understand it. Most people that I know, well, who are we going to gravitate to? We're not going to be around anyone.
Well, it's really good when someone says, I don't understand it, because there are other people that I don't understand. But here's the thing. I know I don't understand it. Instead of me lashing out and treating them like they're less than.
Yes.
I have to remember, wait a minute. Number one, that's still a human.
Yes.
Number two, yes, I do recognize difference. We're different.
Yes.
And I recognize that. But I also have to remember that I can't treat you bad because we're not the same. Do you understand what I mean?
But why, to me, I always go, well, why would we? If I like you, I don't care if you're black, white, yellow, green.
Because you're normal. You're normal. So you have sections of people. You have people that go through life literally blind to it all. And it's just like people are people, and they don't take anything else in. That's fine too. That's a bubble they're in, and maybe where they are, that works. And I'm fine with that. And then you have some people that I don't care if you don't look the same, they don't like you. And here's the thing, within your own group, you have people that don't like you because now you separate people because of class, or you separate them because of religion. So my church is like everything I just explained. You go in my church and there's some of everybody in there. And that was done on purpose. It was literally done on purpose. I have to be honest, if I want to see a whole bunch of black people, I'm going to go back here in the house because that's where they are.
You're so funny.
But I want to know people. And here's the thing, as a Christian woman, I'm a God's child first.
Yes.
Then I'm an individual second.
Yes. God
said we are to be disciples of his word. Now, if they beat that man the way he did on the way to saving all of us, I cannot, nor will I ever try anymore to understand how people function with hate and things like that, because those people, they spat on him, even though it said he gave them the promises. And even though there are a lot of people that believe that this man was a savior, could care less. So you have those groups of people that some will gravitate and want to learn. Then you have that group that like, I'm gonna ride this hate until the end of time. Rosie, when I moved here to Texas, so it's almost 12 years ago, professionally, I'm a nurse.
Right.
Before I became I was styling in high school, but I went to college and I became a nurse. And when I moved here to Texas, I needed to get a full-time job until my husband's job got going and that kind of thing. So I took a nursing job. And the very first job I took, I was a nurse in a facility where I don't know if they got all of the most prejudiced residents in Texas and put them in this one particular facility. And I mean, it was like, you're playing a joke on me, huh, Lord? Now, this has got to be an absolute
getting
joke.
Punked.
I really thought the cameras were going to come out and just let me have it, because these people, I'm like, you need this medicine, you need this help, but you don't want to take it because I'm black.
The patience.
And I mean, like, these people are like 90, 80s. I mean, like, but when you hear their stories, like I would see the pictures. I always like to see pictures in the room. So I would tell family members, bring their pictures so they can have something to remember.
Yes.
Even if their memory is going, still bring things that make them feel visually comfortable.
Yeah.
They would bring me pictures, and I would look at the pictures like, what? I'm like, not those pictures. Don't bring, please don't bring those pictures. Some of these pictures were quite heinous pictures. So I had one that was I used to write about him because I couldn't talk to my family about it, but he was a old Klan member.
Oh my gosh.
I used to always sing, like when I'm working with patients, I used to hum At the Cross. It's a red hymn song.
Yep.
So that, I guess, kept me calm. And he hated that I would hum that. He's like, you can't hum that. That song wasn't meant for you. And I was like, that song was meant for me. Now I was like, I'm an antagonist. I was like, I'm going to sing it.
I'm going to sing it in your ear.
And I'll never forget on his deathbed, you call the family members in and let them know that he's declining and things like that. And you have conversations with them so you can find out if they're, how they're doing, during this hospice time.
Right.
And before he transitioned, I said, God is here for all of us. You just got to accept him. That man said, he's not here for you. And he took his last breath. Well, right before the last breath, he started to, normally when you transition, you start to lose your breath. Certain things start to happen.
Yeah,
this man got this burst of energy that you could feel in the room. And he started to scream. And I'm like, you don't normally have that type of energy. And I mean, he's screaming to the top of what's left of his lungs. And the nurse next to me, CNA was next to me, and she said, his maker is coming for him. And it just sent chills through my body. And I was like, because that's not how you're supposed to go. But I was like, well, maybe his maker did. And in my head, I'm like, no, there's always that last chance. I'm trying to be that nurse, like giving that last little hope. And I'm like, just call out to him. But no.
No, he held on. He held on to the anger.
He held on that hate to the bitter end. 93 years.
And here you are, this angel on earth taking care of him, because nurses, that's what they are. They're angels on earth.
To this day, I feel like every patient, so my background is geriatrics. For me, every patient, I took an oath to make sure that I'm that patient's advocate. I'm not looking at your religion. I'm not looking at the criminal history. I'm not looking at the faults. All I know is this patient that's in front of me needs assistance.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I see. So I get them all. I get them Indian. I get them white. I get them black. I get them all. And there are cultural differences that I have to adhere to because that just comes with the territory. And I'm fine with it. I don't take offense to, maybe it's almost 20 years, so I don't take offense to too much stuff now. But what I do say to everybody that works with people, put your grandparents' face on the person that you hate.
Yes.
Put your grandparents' face on there. Put that person in your life that you love, that did everything. Now take care of that person.
Yep. I have said that on a post. I don't know if you saw it, but I've done this several times, not just recently, but I always say to people, when I see something happening out and about, I can remember this one time, and there was this guy, he was white, and he was like 35, 40 years old. No, he was probably about 40 years old. We're coming out of the post office, and there was an elderly woman in front of me, and he just slammed the door, like it almost knocked her over. He's on his phone, he's on whatever. And I'm like, we're just so busy. We're not even like watching what we're doing. So I left there, I met some girlfriends for lunch, and we're sitting in the restaurant, and at this table next to me, this man I have to tell you, there's also this population of people that have a power trip with servers. You know who they are. You've probably seen them. I don't get it. And this guy belittled this young woman to the point where she started crying. And I got up and I have ended friendships. I have left business meetings with people at my table doing that. And my words have always been to my kids, to whoever is there, that woman, that young lady is someone's daughter. Do you have a daughter? That's someone's daughter, or
Right.
that's someone's wife, or that's someone's mother or father or grandfather. Let's stop. Like, we need to pause and think about that is another human being. That is somebody's child. Period. End of story. We're all someone's child.
Right.
Let's think about it in terms of that. How do you treat someone, regardless of color? How do you treat someone with such utter disrespect? Because again, I remember that man like it was yesterday, and I said to him, "Sir, is this making you feel better then? Like, is this?" And he got nasty with me, and I said, "Listen, you can say all you want. I am a woman. I know who I am. I know who loves me. I know
Right.
why I was created. This is a young girl who is impressionable, and she was over here being sweet as pie. How could you treat her?" And this man was not going to stop. He wasn't going to stop. And I just went back to the table, and we started talking, and I said, "Where does that come from?" And that hurt people hurt people. I don't understand it, Stephanie. I never will. But because I don't understand it, because I don't do it, doesn't mean that I can look the other way. And that's why we're also having this conversation. We need to be having conversations in our homes. We need to be talking to our children about this. We need to be talking in our businesses about this. We need to be talking in our churches about this. I called my number 3. It's so funny that we go 1, 2, 3. I have to. I'm like, listen, at some point, I'm never going to remember all your names. So I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, and 4. So number 3 lives up in Oklahoma City. And he lives on kind of a main thoroughfare and like a block from the police station. And so I called up and I'm like, "I'm just checking on you to see if you're okay. How has the protesting been? Has it been, has it been peaceful?" And he said, "Yeah, Mom, it's actually been wonderful. It's been really peaceful.
That's
and people are having conversation." And, he goes, "It's a little weird. I got helicopters going over at night, and that's a little bizarre." He said, but even he was over his friend's house. They were having a barbecue. He's like, and he's telling me, "We're socially distancing. Don't worry." And I'm just going, you know what? Jesus, just protect them. Please just protect them. And so he said, "But here's the thing, Mom, we're all talking about this. And our generation is so different." And I'm like, "Oh, thank God." And he's talking and he's like, "Mom, it's just unbelievable." And then he's like, "Mom, I'm going to get going." He goes, "I'm getting so passionate about this. Everybody's laughing at me," because we were getting into this conversation. And he said, "Mom, you know what? I just want to thank you for raising me right. I can't imagine ever hating someone." He goes, "Mom, there's good people and there's bad people. It just doesn't matter."
Exactly.
But when your child says, you just go, "Oh, thank God." Like, you don't know what penetrate you, and I just go, and I went, "Oh, honey, you know what? Just be careful." I said, "But keep having conversations with your friends. Keep talking about this and don't let it stop like it has stopped in the past. Like, let's keep the momentum going."
Yeah.
I mean,
but you bring that up and it makes me think of, all right, so you're from one coast and I'm from the same coast, but then raised on another coast with a family from an island. So moving here to Texas, this is another culture shock, because folks here in the South do things completely different than how you do, how you function on coast.
They do, but we lived in Atlanta for 3.5 years. That was my introduction to, or sometimes I say it was my hazing. I'm sorry, Atlanta, but to the South, where it was the first time that racism, I was slapped with it in the face. Like, it was blatant. Like, I was in a meeting and I just could not believe the words that were coming out of people's mouths. And I was told I was a Yankee and I didn't understand. And this is the way that it's been. And this is who they are. And I said, "Well, you can continue as you are without me." Like, I just could not believe the ignorance and how blatant. And I remember going home to Rob and going, I was in this meeting And this occurred, and it was the first time I heard someone use the N-word about someone. I was an adult. And my whole body, like I can remember, like my throat, my body, I almost started shaking. I was like, it was the word that my mother looked us in the eye, and because I was like, what is this word that they're saying? And my mother, you will never, ever. That is to make someone feel less than. You will never use that. Now, if I felt that way as a white woman, listening to a white woman say that with a white man, how could I possibly, if I was Black, how would I feel? And if it was being said to me, if I had such a reaction to it. And this is where I say to people, you have no idea. And I've asked everybody that's been on the podcast, have you ever been called that? And the first time it did, like, how did it, like, I mean, to me, it was so shocking.
It's just jarring. It throws you off because that person puts, I'm going to take you back to that time I told you about in that store.
Yes.
That person puts a lot, that person just doesn't say it nonchalantly. There's so much energy, so much fire that comes with either the phrase or the word. And I have to say, I can only speak for myself. I know I'm out and there's different things have been said about me, and it just doesn't bother me in that same way. But then there's sometimes you have somebody that makes sure that they go out of their way to make you hear what they want to say. It's those people. Now, they don't ruin my day. It throws me off for a moment, but it's one of those things I have to tell myself, they spit on the Lord. They spit on the Lord. They spit on the Lord.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, long as a person just doesn't put their hands on me, there will be no altercations in the city. But all
right, well, let's talk about that for a minute, okay?
Oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing what I'm seeing right now.
Okay, so I've been having this conversation, all my friends that have been on here, right? So this happened with me and a friend, well, a bunch of my friends, right? And so a lot of my white friends have never had Black friends before, right? I have Black friends. We're all over my house, or we're in church together, or we're in Tres Dias together, or we're whatever. And we're at someone's house, and one of the gals, my girlfriend who's Black, just changed her hair up again. And she's got this curly little bounce going on. She's adorable. And one of my girlfriends who's become friends with her, and they love each other. I mean, she's got a heart of gold, and there's not a bad bone in her body. And very respectfully said, I love your hair. I love that you change it all the time. She said, can I ask you about your hair? And my girlfriend was like, yeah, of course you can ask me about my hair. And so she said, is it a wig? Is it a weave? And so it opened this conversation to where it could have went another way.
But that was totally respectful, though.
Totally. And my girlfriend knew it was, and she kept saying, I love your hair, and I love the bounce, and then it catapulted into the other white women going, I wish I could wear a wig. I'm sick of my hair's falling out, it's thinning, and we're all giggling and laughing. And my girlfriend said, how would you know? If you've had no Black girlfriends, how would you know? Right?
And that's valid. That's totally valid. Yeah. If you're in a place where everybody around you, I'll use me for example. If I'm growing up in a place where everybody around me is Black and Latino, I can't tell you how somebody 20 miles away from me that lives in Beverly Hills, how they're living. You know why? Right. I don't know.
I never don't know.
I didn't travel there.
But how are we going to know? It's like, this is my thing.
Here's the thing. When you put in your heart that, you know what, I'm open to learning.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. So for that group of people, they're going to be life learners. That's not the group of people that you have the issue with if you want to know the truth.
Yes.
The issue comes with the knuckleheads of every single ethnicity, culture, race, whatever word you want to use, fine with me. It's the knuckleheads of every group that will always mess it up for everybody. And here's the thing, that's the part of your group that's always so polarized that it makes the people that are doing something great, normal, or just trying to exist, it makes them almost invisible. And then now you create this lump of people. When my family, when we go out to eat, we are a party of 7 on a regular day. That's my household and my mom. My mom lives down the street, so when I go somewhere, we're like Thelma and Louise. I'm like, let's go, Elaine, let's get it. So when we walk into a room, there are times, now my husband says he doesn't notice this because we had this conversation, and I said, well, I key in on body language and tone and feel, so I see it. I sometimes will see people that don't want to serve us because they think it's known that my group doesn't tip well, right?
No, I never heard that. I own restaurants. Wait a minute. Yeah. So I own restaurants. I never heard that.
I'm like, you haven't met Stephanie. No, you want Stephanie as, because we are going to have a good time. I'm going to learn my server's name. I'm going to learn the bus boy's name. I'm like, who's back there cooking that food? I want to know his name too. And we have really nice conversations. And my husband's like, do you ever meet a stranger? No.
Why would you?
No. Now, here's where you mess up your tip. If I have terrible service or you have an attitude, you're messing it up. So then I guess I'll fall in the stereotype that day. But in general,
I don't think that's a stereotype because I'm the exact same way. I'm like, listen,
I'm a good tipper. So if you see me coming with things, I'm a good tipper. I am a good tipper.
Listen, I will tell you, I've never heard that, and I can tell you what I have heard. What I have heard in our restaurant is the older they are, and they say not everyone, but a lot of times, sometimes they'll get a quarter or 50 cents.
But you got to think of their time period.
That's what I say to them, and I'm like, okay, so, but here's the thing. I'm like, that's not all of the older generation, because some of our best tippers are older. So it goes back to me and this, one of the women that was on, Liz Everett, she said, we keep making these blanket statements, right?
Exactly.
But it's also a mindset. So her and I were talking about this too. And you know what I do for a living. So it's all about mindset and limiting beliefs. So this mindset, so in a day, we have like 60,000 thoughts a day. Most of them are negative for a great bunch of the population. Not all. If you've done some work, a mindset work, and you feel it, and then you switch it. But if you think about, you have a great day, and one bad thing happens that day, what do we remember?
That one bad thing.
So you take a group, you take another group, you take another group, you take another group. And there's one bad apple here, and there's one bad apple here, or there's one bad. What are we going to remember? And this is what happens. And we have to consciously say to ourselves, one bad apple does not make the whole tree bad.
You have to stay realistic. There are some social norms. And certain things. Like if you go into a room and you see, I'm not going to say the group of people because it could be any group of people. If you see a group of people that just don't look too savory looking, I don't care who they are, I'm not going to feel safe.
No.
And I wouldn't expect
energy
you
like
to.
I do.
Energy is a big part of life, and it has actually saved my life. Actually, when I style clients, if we don't have that, we have the first session, and it literally does have a mindset component to it. because I got to undo all the stories that you have why you do the way what you do. But certain things are a matter of safety.
They are.
But if you lump everybody into one group, it's just a bad combination of things that it's going to combust at some point in time. If you look at somebody, say, oh, that person, oh, I think they only like that kind of music, and I think they'll only eat that food, and they'll only do that. I'd be that one black chick that would come in and just mess that all up. I really would, because if you hear the type of music I listen to, you're like, really? It's a huge mix. I'm probably the only person down at the Indy 500 having a good old time. I love NASCAR. It's just like, but I like a whole mix of things, and it just
love everything. You're just
not
open to
good
life.
when somebody wants to lump you into one thing just because they think that's what you should be. But what's good about right now, and this what you're doing right here for the podcast, is you're just opening up the dialogue to.
That's it.
Just opening up the dialogue to somebody who just didn't know someone else, and it's not their fault if they didn't know. No. But now you're responsible to know somebody different. There's got to be somebody different, especially if you're living.
Look at where we live. If
you're living now, if you're out in the sticks somewhere and things like that,
right,
and you just don't get out into town, so to speak. I'm not going to expect you to say, I know somebody that's Japanese or somebody that's Chinese or somebody that's black, because we're probably not over there.
Right.
But the moment that you hear, open up a book or do a little research or see, that's when we're responsible. I think I sidetracked you, or we were about to talk about the hooligans.
Good. No, that's segues. No, that's perfect.
I was watching something live yesterday that hurt me to the core, because I've totally taken myself away from watching the news and stuff like that. After last week, I was just like, I'm done. Yeah. I can't. It's sensory overload. We pulled up on YouTube. ABC Channel 7 in California used to be like, they had Jerry Dumpy was like the newscaster, and when he went breaking news, you knew that you were like,
that in New York, they would go, now in from.
Yeah, so when you saw that, and you saw that breaking news banner at the bottom, you knew that you were stopping what you were doing so you could see what this man was going to say. Now, if they say breaking news, they're like, oh, no, Paris Hilton had a car accident. Really?
You're right.
No, it's no. So now it's just like, I can't take anymore, and I won't say I'm trying to exclude myself from the population. I'm not trying to exclude myself from the world, but what I do need to do, I still have to be my husband's wife. I still need to be my own individual. I still have clients. I still have kids to raise, and if I don't take care of my mental health, I'm not going to be any good to them, because the only conversations I'll be able to have is what I saw in media.
Yeah.
And I just think at some point in time, you've got to shut off so you can have some sanity.
I agree.
Absolutely can have some sanity. And I was looking yesterday, I was mentioning this friend of mine was showing me a live. I don't remember where the live was, but I don't even know who was sending him. Oh, it was a watch party, and I clicked on it, and I wish I wouldn't have. And he was showing me these people. They were just throwing little things in glasses so they could just get into the stores and do different things. And they were only hitting up stores like AT&T and Verizon and luxury stores. And I was thinking, how are we supposed to paint a picture when this is the picture that you rather put up there? How about showing the graduation of all of those men that just became doctors in Morehouse? How come you can't show me that? How come you can't show me all of these men that are out here with their young sons, not just black, but I'm talking about white too, out here showing them what unity looks like? Why can't you spin that?
I agree.
Why can't we have that? but yet you want to show me the Mercedes-Benz dealer that now is totally ruined. What is the value of that? So what media wants to do is excite fear. They want to excite this unrealistic expectation of what humans are capable of.
Yes.
They want to show you what goons look like and how goons probably rule that particular race or culture, and it really isn't how that truly is going to be. But
I feel like they're just
that in
trying
your
to
head, and you
divide
go
us.
through day after day after
Yeah.
day of being angry. So now I have my white counterparts. If they just watch 5 days of tomfoolery, and I come up here with 1 day of celebrate my child, she just graduated with honors, they're like, whatever, because they just have 5 days of overload of foolishness.
Yeah.
So I'm like, just shut it off and understand we have differences, and understand, back to the beginning of what I was saying, this has a small thing to do about this man that passed away, but it was just a nail in the coffin to the bigger issue that is just so huge. And what happened, why it was just like no more, is because of what was potentially about to happen to that officer, which was nothing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was just like no more. You cannot. I mean, like, this is different. You're looking at
this is
face.
blatant. Nobody can. You watched a man die. Nobody can set you. No one will ever be the same after this, and people will reference
and you
that.
can't. And if you can be the same, that you're the ones. Yeah. It's hard. So I'm hearing different people saying, well, why are we celebrating this man's death? No.
He's a human being.
I don't know about this man's history, and I'm not trying to look up his history because I can't cast any stones, if you want to know the truth.
No.
But what his life did do, those last 6 minutes, is about to change a whole lot of other lives. So if he's 46. If we look at the 46 years, I probably don't want to know nothing about the 46. But the last 6 minutes of his life is what we're going to remember, at least what I'm going to choose to remember. And it has changed my life again forever. And I'm not grateful that it happened, but I am grateful that when I do see people around the world now it's like, yes, we have this issue too. So it's no more hiding. There's no more in the bushes. There's no more.
That's the key. This is our issue. It's not their issue. And I will tell you, within the white community, I have never seen so much conversation. And
I love it.
I'm just telling you, so much conversation. Anyone that family or white friends. I mean, I have friends from all over, but talking about it, like, oh my gosh, this was horrendous. What is your church doing about this? Have you been? People are like, I feel like it's different now. Like, I feel like people are talking more and more, and it's open. And as a white person, even though I have friends, but it doesn't matter. I am learning so much, and I'm realizing how much I don't know, I don't know about what goes on, just by having the different conversations with friends or having people on this podcast, because each person has brought, I have learned history lessons. I have learned about colorism in the Black community within family. I had no idea. I was
talking to you about that one.
Yeah. Just hearing that. And then also, which is the point of this, how much we have in common within our families and the craziness in our families. And, everybody's got a crazy Uncle Joe or whatever his name it. Like, we just, you see that, come on. We all have red blood running through our veins because our skin color is either lighter or darker. Who cares? How boring would this world be if we all look the same? And so it's more than that, right? So forever I have said that, and I've taught that to my kids. But it's so much more than that because of the history of this country and the way that Blacks were brought to this country and the way that they've been made to feel. I think, and I'm hoping and I'm praying that that's beginning to penetrate. I know it's going deeper for me,
it's going deeper for a lot of people. Here's something I want to mention about slavery. Every single person on this planet, whatever group you're from, has experienced slavery firsthand. So anybody that says, "Oh, my folk people were involved in slavery," everybody to the beginning of the roots have been in some form of bondage, whether it's sex trafficking or diminishing a certain group or everybody. Yeah. It just so happens that our particular group of people have had it, and it's just gone on and on and on. But I never want to say we're the only ones. So if anyone says, "But we're the only one," no, we're not the only ones. We're not the only ones. But it's still, I'm still empathetic to everyone else. But I would say this hurts on a level to watch decade after decade after decade having to have certain feelings about certain things. You know, I keep hearing, "Oh, this is the first black this." I'm like, God, this is 2020. We still the first black at this place, or the first black kid here? I'm like, can we just, when are we just going to be, I'm in the building?
When are we going to just be?
But
we're learning stuff like so. I can remember a couple of years ago in my book club, we read this book called The Orphan Train. Now, my heritage is Irish. Okay, I had no idea that there were 250,000 Irish orphans that were sent out to become slaves across America. Did you know that? I had no idea.
My husband was in Ireland last year, and he's been studying Irish history for like 20 years. So
I've been in Ireland. I got engaged in Ireland. I never heard this. My grandparents, I never heard this. And I was like, really? And then you start seeing like what their kids felt like, and it's no different. It's no different. It's like, we've talked about, if this is your history and this is the way that everybody has been treated in your family, you're going to have this preconceived notion or whatever. What I'm hoping and I'm praying is that by having these conversations, by having people see us just sitting with one another, two women that care about each other, respect each other, love each other, like just one woman to another, a mother to another. To think that you have to worry about your son, I worry. I'm praying over him. He's on the prayer board. Like, your family's on the prayer board. No one should have to worry about themselves, their husband, their father. My girlfriend's like, my husband won't go walking in this neighborhood, or he won't jog in this neighborhood. I can't get over that. This is where we're at. Like,
we're there, but we'll get better. We'll get better. I'm hopeful and know that we'll definitely get better. And the great thing is, this is the first time in American history for anybody that people are willing to have conversations. Now, let's just call it what it is. You're going to have a group of people that are not interested.
Yes.
Here's the thing. I always tell people, you can't worry about the ones who don't want to.
No, you can't.
Still keep having your conversations, because they can still hear it. And certain things happen chemically to our brain when we're listening to certain things. You still pick things up.
Yes.
What you do with it is on you. But the people that do want to learn or want to know something different, they're going to reach out.
They are.
And so
and we've been telling them we're going to put resources in. Some people have recommended books or whatever. And I'm like, just Google search. We've got Google. Listen, I told my husband if we had a fifth kid, I was going to name it Google.
That would be my kid's name. It'd be Googler. So like, get on the Google.
Got everything. Yeah, just Google. Talk to your kids. And you know what? If your kids are grown, still have the conversation, but have the conversation with your grandkids. My grandson was over here like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we typically don't put on TV. Maybe we'll do a Disney movie or whatever, but we play games. We're in the pool. We go for hikes. We're swimming. But we came back, and we had wiped each other out with like a 6-mile bike ride. We were both exhausted. And he said, Mimi, have you seen All American? And I said, no, I haven't. So he got it. He goes, well, I watched All American. I don't know if you know this. There's a show called
The
All
show?
American. It's about football players and their
I
families.
do watch it because where I grew up, I see some of the things they depict from there, and I'm like, it's hilarious to watch.
But it's a great show because what it's doing is it's really like, so here he is. He's gonna, he's 11, gonna be 12. He's watching this. And he's asking questions. Like, even though he's watched it with mom and dad, I thought it was a little old for him. And he's like, no, mom and dad, we're watching it together. And there have been certain issues because one of the guys is married to a white woman. Their children are biracial. And there was one instance, where they were in the car and he's asking me questions. So here's what I say to my friends. And they're like, well, I've raised my kid. We still have grandchildren. Like, let's talk to them. Let's find some books. Like, my children had no books. I don't think that there was any children of color in the books. I don't remember. I don't remember. But now there's more and more books coming out. Let's really be intentional to show our children everybody, every culture, everything, and not just kind of live in this bubble and just keep teaching. You know what? You love the person unless they prove otherwise. And it's as simple as that. And that is someone's mother. That is someone's
That's good.
brother.
That's really good. My dad used to tell me, he's like, we're going to travel. And his way of saying we're going to travel, we go down to the downtown LA had a huge library, like multiple levels. So on Saturdays, we would go to the library and we would pick books, and it'd be about either different state or different country. And that's what excited me when I was younger. And that's what made me want to travel when I got older. I was like, when I have kids, I am traveling. And people used to say, oh, you want to wait till your kids get older?
Oh, no.
I was like, older for what? I said, look, my dad died when he was 49. I was 16. He used to say, when you get a little older, and then he got sick when I was about 13-ish or so. And I said, I'm not waiting to travel. I'm not waiting to date my husband. I'm not waiting to purchase a home. I'm not waiting for anything because I have 4 people that are looking at my actions. They're looking at how I respond to other people. They're looking at how I invest money. They're looking at how I spend money. They're looking at how I talk to their father or not talk to their father. They're looking at everything I do, and that has more impact than even the things that I say. So it is very important for me to travel with them. It's very important for me when I go to a meeting or their dad goes to a meeting that, nope, you go in and you go sit back in the corner. Don't say anything. It's very important for me for me to find my friends that don't look like me. And we've done this already. I'm like, you know what? If you have an internship, I would like them to work with you.
Smart.
Different mannerisms.
Yes.
We may eat different. I'm like, but asking to bring something home there. But, we have different things going on. But that's how you learn about people. You have to be an active learner, not afraid of knowing that there's differences out here.
Yeah.
Look, I have to be honest. I mentioned this to you the other day. I said,
going to bring it up. I know what you're going to talk about.
Statistically, if I go out here right now, the likelihood of me being killed by somebody that looks like you, Rosie, is not going to be high. It's going to be somebody probably that looks like me. Reason I won't know. But it's really sad because when I go places, here we have another subgroup. I'm looked at as bougie in my own group of people, which is the craziest thing in the world to me. But then you have another group of people that would think they would call me ghetto just because I'm Black, because that's all they know. That's all they were told. That's all they were taught. That's all the perception that they have. And that's why these conversations are so necessary. So people understand everybody has such a vast bucket of difference that you have to stop with these stereotypes. You've got to stop with the stereotypes, because if you don't, we're going to stay where we are for even longer. But the thing is, we can't anymore. We birthed this baby now. Now it's time to raise this one. This baby is out.
I do want to bring something up if you're comfortable, and if you're not, we can edit this part out. But
no,
that's not what I thought you were going to bring up. I thought you were going to bring up what someone had said to you. Well, something like, well, that doesn't apply to your family. You're different.
Yeah.
Want to speak on that or not? Because
I'll speak on that. So would it help if I kind of give a background of my family, or?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So my husband is a chiropractor. He's been a practicing chiropractor for almost 20 years. I've been a nurse legally for 20 years, but I've totally switched careers. But I still stay within my career because I want to keep my license just in case. But we've had a really good life financially. Now I won't say perfect, but what we've decided to do is we do things in regards to giving back. We've put people through college, help foster care systems. That's something new for me. Help foster care systems. My husband actually was out in the community in Los Angeles trying to get groups together and things like that. And when we moved here to Texas, first it was, oh, those people are from California, so people will lump you in because you're California. They thought you came here with that California money. No, I came to Texas with $1,000. His practice didn't sell. I didn't have my job yet. And it was like, we're out here on a bucket and a prayer, but we've got to leave California because we don't want, I'm sorry, there's a wasp. So if you see me ducking and dodging, that is the only thing.
Oh, no.
So we came out here like that, and we looked at each other. We just really given our lives to God. And we're like, look, you gave us a plan, and you sure gave it to us. And you gave it to us a lot in California. And our house didn't sell. We gave up our cars.
Wow.
We gave up so much. And I was like, we gave up so much. And we gained it back like fivefold. I can't even describe to you how we gained it back. But you have people in my own group that will tell me, well, you don't understand what we're going through because you don't understand. You've never been in a position. And I said, that word never is what will mess you up, because you never asked.
What's my background?
I said, he was born and raised in Inglewood, California. I'm Compton, California. If on paper, you would never put those people together. You would never say, back in the day, I don't know how it would be now, but you would never say that those people would thrive. Maybe one or two. You got Serena and Venus. You got a couple other people, but there are a lot of people that come from where I came from are doing an amazing job. An amazing job because they worked hard.
Right.
They worked hard. And yes, I am privy to certain things in life that we worked hard for.
But if
we lost it all, I still know how to go right back to the bottom and come right back up. Because
you have your priorities straight. You have your priorities.
But not only that, if God gave it to me,
He could take it away.
Nobody can take it. He will take it.
Yes.
And if I'm meant to have it again, it will come back. But it really hurts sometimes when someone says something like that to me because of either where I live or things that we do. And I'm like, no, that was deliberate. So I'm not going to apologize ever for that. And I won't apologize ever for raising my kids the way I do, because that's what I wanted. I don't raise them in a bubble, though. I do raise them knowing that this world, everybody don't like you.
It's interesting, though. You know what, Stephanie? So we moved into this house probably like 7 years ago. So we lived in another neighborhood in Allen. Most of them are planned communities. And we thought we were only going to be there 7 months. But, you know, like 6 years later, we're busting out of that house. And I said, we have to look for a new house. So there was a house that had been one of the models. And it was gorgeous with a wrap. You don't see that many down here, with a wraparound porch, and had almost an acre backyard, and was across from the amenity center, and this, you know, the water with the swan in it. I mean, it was like, you know, I grew up until I was 11 in the Bronx, and then we moved to Westchester, and it was like, this house was great. It was close to being a foreclosure. And they had just let this house go. They were getting divorced. She had 5 kids, was looking to sell it. And I was trying to decide. I owned a fitness center over in Flower Mound. So I'm like, maybe I need to be closer to Flower Mound. But I drove, you know, you feel that energy. One day I'm driving by, never even saw that sign before, went in and out of our neighborhood constantly and saw the sign and went over to it. And I looked in the window and I could.
You knew that was a spot.
The energy. Now, this house, when I tell you the reason we got it for the price we did, you know, it needed a lot of work. Now, we put blood, sweat, and tears into that house. Love that house. And we love to have people over. My whole love language is I'll cook for everyone. Come on over. We'll have a party. My husband once a year would have his entire team over. We pop up tents, the whole bit. And I will tell you, there were times where people would come in and judge and say, well, you would never understand, or, oh, you know, did you get raised by a wealthy family, or what did you come from, or what did you have no idea? And I've always used it as a lesson with my kids. I'm like, don't assume because you walk into someone's house and it's a beautiful home, or they're driving a beautiful car. I said, first of all, what I've learned is most of the people don't own any of that stuff, right? So you've got to be careful with your money.
I own mine.
Right? But you know that. Like,
my whole head fell off on that one.
But you know what I'm saying. Where I'm like, I'm going to own everything. I'm not going to owe, right? I'm going to own. And so, and it was teaching lessons, even with other women and other men. Here were grown people, educated. And I'd say, don't try to, you know, judge me by my cover. Well, then we moved here, and out of circumstance, it was just a smaller home. It was just, we had a week to move. Our house sold like that. And Kelly was starting high school, and we were moving to Frisco. And it was like, oh my goodness, we have like a week. I don't want to go into temporary housing. I've done that before.
Right.
And so we had 5 houses to choose from. So we chose this. I sold furniture, gave it away, and I went, listen, this is good for us right now. She could walk 1 block to the high school while we were building businesses, and I didn't have to worry. All I wanted, let that backyard have shade. I wanted my saltwater pool. I didn't care about the rest of the house. I didn't. Well, let me tell you what some of my friends, when they came over from my old neighborhood for book club or whatever, were like, and I could hear them, is everything okay with them? Are they fine? This is so much smaller. And I just went, And so it was a teaching moment again. And one of the women said to me, I don't want to pry. And we know a difference between, hey, Stephanie, is everything okay? You know, I'm here for you because I care for you and I love you. Or that, everything okay? Like, I want to know. I'm just snooping. And I said to her, well, let me tell you something. We had a week. We own this house. We paid cash outright. How about you? And she just looked at me and she's like, really? And I'm like, listen, don't judge. Like,
I totally get it. Because when kid number 3, he's going into 11th grade. All right, so the first one's 3rd year college. So she's on a 5-year plan at her school.
Oh, yeah.
The next one is leaving for college in August. She wants to be a doctor. So I'm like, you better hang out over there by the master's apartment and find your husband, because I don't know about all of this right now. Number 3, you know, he's looking at school. So I have him like, so 11th grade, we start doing our college tours and things like that. And my husband and I look at each other like, eventually, in about 5 years, these kids will not, this won't be home like, like this. They'll start their lives and things. And we looked at each other like, we're downsizing. We're downsizing. When we mention that to other people, how could you leave that? I said, because you're attached to the house. I'm like, we made that a home. Now, it's a nice one, and I really, really like it. But there's going to come a point where I'm going to be too old to care about these stairs. Yeah. The kids are gone, so why am I going upstairs? That's their world. The dog is 2 steps away from us having a funeral, so I don't need that side over there, poor dog. Then the pool, I want to go to a place where there are amenities there. I don't need a pool man. I don't want so much grass. I don't want any of it. It's going to be time for our next phase of life. So in my heart and soul, I'm like, the next family that has this home, they're going to get a home that they're absolutely going to love, because I can't imagine being my mom's age. She's 75, living in this house. No. There will be so many cobwebs in this house.
I never go upstairs in this house. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never go upstairs. I mean, we have one that's still at home. All the rest are gone. When we moved in here, our dog was at the end. I mean, we went from that acre to our backyard as all pool and patio. And I have to tell you,
I don't even want the pool part anymore. I just want a little, I'm just thinking of, I'll have enough space I would like for if the kids came back, they have somewhere. So I'm not going to totally squeeze them out.
You do
at the
want
same
them to come home.
Yeah, I do. And if I have grandkids one day, I want to have a little space like my mom. Rylan has his own world at grandma's house down the
Does he?
So when I set my house up, she lives down the street. We had to, she moved to Texas right as I got pregnant with him. That's so awesome. She was over the moon. So she has a couple of rooms in her house. It's just hers. So she was like, I want one for the baby. I was like, for the baby?
That's awesome.
She was like, yeah.
You'll see. You'll be doing the same thing. We did it. You'll be doing the same thing.
Yeah, because on Fridays, Rylan calls his grandma, and he's like, come and get me. And he puts all his stuff in there, and he comes back on Sunday, enough time for church. So.
But how great is that? Your mom's right.
It's the best.
And your kids are there.
Absolute best. It's the best.
I miss my mom. That's because you know what? It's precious. No one loves your children more than your mother. No one.
I love it because she's still spry and still telling the stories. And you know what? Speaking of a story, she just let something out to me a couple of weeks ago that I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
What?
I said, Mom, I have an uncle who passed away last year, and he lived a long time in London. And I said, Mom, do you know how Uncle so-and-so, or why he lived in London? And I was looking at the time period that he lived there. And she said, I don't know. Now, my mom is one of 12. She's number 12.
Oh, wow.
My uncle was number 6. And he used to send money back from England back to Jamaica when she was younger, so she could have school fees and things like that. So she didn't know. This was in the 50s when he lived there. And I was like, but do you know how he got to London?
Right. How did he end up over there?
Sweetie, I just know he went there to work in the 50s and 60s. She said, no, he just went there to work. I was like, Mommy, do you know why there are a lot of Jamaicans in London? And she said, no, I just think that's where they really liked. And I said, Mom, are you serious?
I don't know why. Why are there a lot of Jamaicans?
So we found this piece of history called the Windrush. Please look this up on YouTube.
Windrush.
The Windrush. And it's a lot of people that took a lot of people from Haiti, from Jamaica, and the other Caribbean islands and took them to England to help build the infrastructure, the buildings you see there, the roads, to drive the buses and all of those things. I didn't know this until this year.
I never heard of that.
I didn't either, but I told her, I said, what sparked my interest was I remember being younger and hearing all of these people being sent back to Jamaica, but I never investigated why. They were there to work. So, you know, if they came there to work, then they could get citizenship there and that kind of thing. So they spent a lot of men there. They worked in the military over there and did different things there. But well, like I said, what really sparked my interest is I remember being in middle school, and I remember a lot of some of my family members, they were trying to, that lived in London, they were trying to send them back, and they were fighting it. And I never really investigated it until this year, when I was like, I wonder how my uncle really got to London and why. So I was just looking up on YouTube Jamaicans in London. Oh, I got flooded with info. And when I saw that, and I was like, oh shoot, my mom doesn't. I wonder if she knows this. So I just privied her to it over the last, I want to say 2 months. So a lot of the questions that I had, now those answers, like those gaps are filled in. So I'm like, okay, so I know why my family lived right here. And now I know why my family moved to this part of London. And now I know, I was like, oh, so-and-so is married to so-and-so because of this. Now it makes sense now, but my mom couldn't fill that in. And I have no more living aunts and uncles that can fill that story in for me. Yeah, so I was telling my mom, I said, you're going to learn this with me because I'm just as amazed. So now my mom is like, they have racism in London like that too. So she, like, we're having a conversation right here and she's learning, we're learning.
Yeah, she's learning.
It's the same thing. So when I see people protesting over there and people here are looking at them like, oh, they're supporting us. They're going through it too. They're going through it too. Yeah. So I say all of that to say, I know I just had an aha moment just 2020 of learning about my own people in a different part of the world.
Yeah.
And here having a 75, 76-year-old mother, and she's learning a part of her history that she didn't know. There's so many of us that are exactly in the same spot. And I think of these people that there's protest and then there's riot.
Oh, yes. There's a difference. They cannot be lumped together.
I can hear you when you protest because your tone, you're having conversation.
You're letting me know you're angry,
but we get things out there. We need to have something needs to happen because you're going to continue to protest. But when you're rioting, the problem with that is whether you agree with it or not, I'm not an agreeer on the rioting, is you're tearing up your own infrastructure. Because most of the time, you're not driving out because you're not going to drive to Frisco and tear up over here.
Right. You're right. It's their own.
You're not going to do it.
Right.
Because Eric and I are sitting on the roof like Ellie Mae Clampett, just waiting. Because nope, not here. Nope. But you have people, you're tearing up your own stuff because you're angry. And if you don't know how to handle your anger, if you don't know how to reach out and talk, if you don't know how to have conflict resolution, if you're fed up and nobody's hearing you, that's where riots come from. So although I don't agree with the tearing up of stuff, on one hand, I understand
where it's coming from.
But that I don't condone it though. I really don't condone it.
I understand where it's coming from.
It's not right though.
But here's the thing. I've been taught my whole life. And it doesn't matter what kind of therapy you're in. It doesn't matter what kind of work environment you're in. When you raise your voice versus raising your words, people don't hear you.
The effect is not the same. So I did a live yesterday about dialogue. And tone is huge. Really important. Like if my son spills orange juice on the table, I make a point not to be like, oh, Rylan, because now he's startled. We've taken attention away from, oh, we got to clean this up. I look over and I have to analyze, do I even need to clean that up? Maybe he's like, oh, I'm sorry, Mommy. I'm like, thank you, Rylan. Let's clean that up.
Yep.
So I've given him a way to handle a situation effectively. But if I immediately go to him and just start yelling at him because he spilled orange juice, one, he's going to be traumatized from orange juice. And then two,
Yes.
he's gonna be traumatized every time he thinks he
Makes
does
a
something. He thinks
mistake
he's
or
gonna
he
get in
steals
trouble.
something.
So
Yeah.
that's what's happening now. People they just keep going with the craziness and the craziness, assuming that somebody else is going to listen. No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hear that I'm going to make a new law that you can't be outside after a certain time because you're out here cutting up. But it's going to affect someone, say like you and like me, that really needs some milk at 6:05 p.m. But I can't go now because you tore up at 5:50.
Yeah. Or these poor, these shop owners. There was footage
Where are you supposed
in
to
New
go
York.
now?
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
footage in New York City, and this woman, you can look her. She was irate. She's a Black woman. She had been in the military. She said, "I've been serving this country." She said,
"Oh, I saw that."
She said, "You're not helping. You're not memorializing someone. You're not helping. You just ruined." She said, "Do you realize by you knocking down that ATM that there are homeless men that use that to charge their devices? Do you realize that these bodegas are families that are immigrants that have saved up everything that they have? What are you doing? Like, what are you You're not getting people to listen to you. They're thinking of you in a bad way instead of in a good way." And
a lot of those people don't have insurance, not sufficient enough to, and that's the part that hurts.
They don't. And then there was a Black woman in Dallas. She has a business down there, and people were on going, "Okay, this is a Black woman, and look at her store right now." And then there was another man. He was a fireman in, I don't know where, Chicago or Minneapolis. And he had saved up all his money for a restaurant bar. And that got just, and you hear these stories and it's like, again, I try to empathize and understand that it's like a volcano. That's the way it's been explained to me. And my friend Nicole yesterday said, "Rose, think of it," which was really, it hit it home to me. She said, "I want you to think about domestic violence." She said, "I was the subject of domestic violence. Your boyfriend or your husband beats you and they go away. And then they come back with flowers. And then everything's okay. And then he beats you again. And then he leaves and he comes back and tells you that he's so sorry and he has chocolates or whatever." She said there's a population that is feeling this way because people are being killed or targeted and everybody says, "Oh my God, this is awful." And then it's out of sight, out of mind, and then it happens again. And I'm like, okay, I hear that. But what I want is I want that to be heard. Like, to me, I want that to be heard. I don't want, and I just know how I am. I mean, I don't want to hear cursing. I'm never going to wear a shirt that has a curse word. That's who I am. I'm not going to share something on social media that has a curse word. So I want to make sure that we're raising our words, that we're communicating and getting the feelings. Like, you can't deny someone's feelings. And on a human level, this is what is happening. And please listen. But yeah, I'm with you. And then you see on the news, like, I'm just like, rioters, stay away from Texas because everybody here owns a gun. You don't want to come into Texas and do this stuff.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm happy for the peaceful protest, but I remember when I was out one day and I didn't know there was a protest about to happen, and I was in Plano.
Right up near you.
I was actually in Plano coming into Frisco, dropping something off, and I saw the group of people, but I hadn't heard about protest or anything, in my area yet. So I was like, I have to admit, in my head, I was like, oh Lord, here we go. That's the first thing that came to my head.
I know.
That was bad right there. So I detoured and I made it home, and then I saw on Facebook that people were getting together, and then I saw it live and it was really good. So the next one I kind of joined that one, but it was really nice to see. But just looking around, I said, this is a first.
I will tell you, I don't ever remember.
This was good. This is good.
I mean, on El Dorado, And a friend of ours actually captured a picture, and it's in the Frisco magazine or something online in style, Sawad, and it's beautiful. You
I got a wasp in
see
here.
mothers, grandmothers,
Yeah.
children of all backgrounds walking together, talking together, hugging together, crying together, and and then praying together. And I'm
That's
getting
what
goosebumps
was
now.
important.
And the prayer, and then our church. I don't know if you saw that, but everybody was up at the City Hall.
At the City Hall. Okay, I saw everyone going.
All churches coming together, and everybody of all different backgrounds with to see children out there being able to see why are we out here, mommy? Why are we out here, Mimi or grandma? Like, why are we out here? Why? Because we're no different, and we need to treat each other with respect and love and whatever. To me, there was nothing more beautiful than seeing that and listening to people and really seeing love and care and concern. That's what I wish the media was focused on. But I think that's a whole nother story. We could stay on here forever. But I think what I'm seeing and what other people on the show and who are going to be on the podcast are saying, it's like the media is purposely trying to like show chaos and divide us. And two people are like, Rose, follow it back to power and money. There's a reason, there's politics involved. It's this party, it's that party. And I'm like, you know what? People will say to me, I got called out in the last week by a few people that were like, how come you're only showing the positive stuff? And I said,
so you can find the negative easily.
Go find it. I want to spread the positive because there's not enough on TV. There's not enough in here. I want people to see the good things that are going on. I don't want to spread negativity. I want to spread positivity. I want to
and I know I hear a lot of people say, well, how do I help? So you have people right now genuinely want to know, how can I be some form of small change? I mean, even if that change happens on your block, it literally starts with conversations. Because like my mom, who just learned something about her own history, it came from a conversation. And now she just wants to do a little more digging. And that's what happens with all of us. And then you start to realize, wait a minute, these folks have really been going through it for a minute. And if I have a voice that I can help change that, whether that's I'm in office or I'm in legislature or whatever the case may be, maybe I didn't know it on this level before, but now that I know, I can do something different, or somebody has some kind of influence. And it all starts literally from a conversation. So when people say, or anyone says, well, how can I make a difference? Don't give up. If you have at least one conversation and that person leaves that conversation with that look of a light bulb went on in their face, or if they say, you know what, I learned something, then you've done something.
Then it was worth it. Well, leave it at that. That's what this is about. Hope through conversations. I believe that we always have hope when we have a conversation. And
definitely.
many times we realize we're not alone. We're not alone in struggles. We're not that different from one another. So thank you so much for being on.
I appreciate you,
I
Rose.
appreciate your time. I know you're so busy.
No problem.
I love you.
I love you too. Thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing.
I will.
Please keep doing what you're doing. It is absolutely necessary.
All right, sweetie. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Thank you for being on. Love you, honey. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Hope Through Conversations. I hope that you have found value in today's episode. With 60% white and only 13% Black people in this country, our Black friends need our help in the fight against racism. It's not good enough to be a good Christian or to love everyone or to have Black friends. We need to be proactive and continue this conversation at home, with our friends, in our businesses, and in our communities in order to elicit change. If there is a specific topic or question you would like me to cover on the show, I would love to hear from you. Please reach out at hopethroughconversations.com. Tune in to our next episode of Hope Through Conversations by visiting our website at hopethroughconversations.com or rosecolarossi.com.